All right, everyone, let's get the show started. Welcome to our DevOps office hours. It's May 26th, 2021. My name is Eric Osterman, and I'll be leading the conversation. I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator, and that means that we help companies own their infrastructure in record time by building it together with your team and showing them the ropes. If that sounds interesting, head over to cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. For those of you new to the call, the format is very informal. My goal is to get your questions answered. So feel free to unmute yourself at any time if you want to jump in and participate. If you're tuning in from our podcast or YouTube channel, you can register for these live and interactive sessions by going to cloudposse.com/officehours. Again, that's cloudposse.com/officehours. We host these calls every week. We'll automatically post a video recording of this session to the YouTube channel. And if you enjoy our content and want to support it, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. It helps out a great deal. We will also follow up with an email that you can share with your team. So with that said, let's kick it off. I got a number of small announcements that I dug up happened this past week. One is that, I guess one is that this feature of Amazon looks kind of interesting. Let me zoom into actual size here, is warm auto-scaling pools. And the way that works is Amazon will actually spin up the instances, never register them with the load balancer, and then suspend them, basically stop them. That way, instances that take a long time to boot up, you can short circuit that process just by launching them and then unsuspending them after they're in that stop state.
When Eric got on the call earlier, he said his internet had been out for 20 minutes. This could be another spell of that.
Yeah, I feel like we need one of those screens that come up like, having technical difficulties. Give us a minute.
Yeah, I'm just wrapping up a status page sprint myself. He's back. And muted, Eric.
And sorry about that. I'm gonna try and do this from my mobile device instead. Looks like my internet connection keeps cutting in and out. What was the last thing you guys heard? Or can you still?
You were just teeing off the EC2 auto-scaling warm pools, so.
Oh, okay, gotcha. And Andy, can you hear me okay right now, or is it too choppy on my mobile?
I can hear you okay.
Okay. All right, let's try this again. Going back into here. Yeah, so these auto-scaling worm pools are pretty slick because it allows you to more instantaneously scale up capacity. I think the nice use case for the EC2 auto-scaling worm pools would be like an EKS pool, where you can keep 20, 25 instances on the side, ready to scale up to meet capacity. Now, it's not instantaneous. You still got to wait, up to 30 seconds for it to unsuspend and rejoin the cluster. But better than waiting 5-10 minutes for a node to come up. Anyone else have a use case for the auto-scaling warm pools? All right.
Allegedly, it's going to be a super big deal for Windows nodes because setting up that AMI and putting up and stuff takes forever, and it's really going to help everybody that's still doing Windows.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine that. All right. The other interesting announcement was,
You may want to reshare your screen, Eric, too.
oh, shoot. Okay, I thought it was. Thanks, Andy. You know me too well. You see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. And the other support was a HashiCorp update on the AWS provider, supporting then the predictive scaling policies for, is it auto scale groups as well? Or is this for, yeah, predictive scaling policy configuration for an auto scale group? So that's pretty cool. I haven't kicked the tires on it. I imagine Amazon's going to be coming out with a lot more AI ML driven augmentations of their services now that they have the foundations for that built. Also, was it Vlad, you had an announcement here in the works, AWS region in the UAE, in the United Arab Emirates.
Yeah, they announced that yesterday, I think. Yeah, yesterday. That might be a big deal for some people.
Okay.
And also, AWS Container Day is happening today. I think it's gonna end in a couple hours
Okay.
at DockerCon.
Okay.
It's focused on ECS.
That'll be a lot of it. That's actually an interesting segue into, well, it's not, it's actually a question, but I wasn't familiar with this. Vlad, you might know more about it. ECS Copilot, a new tool by Amazon.
Yep, I can comment about that. Do we have any other news you want to cover first?
No, hold on. Looks like I hear myself.
It's me. I think I have really shitty audio. Give me a couple minutes.
All right. Yeah, I don't really have too many other announcements. The other one is, it's not really an announcement. I just thought it was interesting trend in ransomware, which is, you know, with the line back, you know, of everyone's mind. What I thought was interesting is that the strategy of ransomware to encrypt the local drives, and then, you know, hold hostage for Bitcoin bounty isn't really the latest and greatest now. Now they're moving towards just leaking the data, because the problem with encrypting the data is that, you know, companies that do back it up, they say, don't worry about it, we'll just restore from backups. Well, if you leak that data, there's no recourse really to that situation. So they're finding that's a more effective strategy. And why this is relevant for us and what we do in DevOps is just, it's increasing the stakes of what's going on. Having backups is not an adequate DR plan for ransomware. If your data is going to be exfiltrated and leaked if you don't pay up. All right. Last announcement. Yeah, Cloud Posse, we are hiring for DevOps contractors, ideally in North America, so US and Canada. And if you haven't yet checked it out, go to cloudposse.com/jobs. Again, that's cloudposse.com/jobs. We're looking specifically for independent contractors with experience on Terraform, Kubernetes, Helm, AWS. Those are the sweet spots we need more help in. So go there and apply. All right, let's transition to and that I got up from our Slack channel came up this week. It was by David Lozano, I think. Came out maybe at the end of the last week or something, which was, any thoughts on the ECS Copilot? So Vlad, do you have any, did you get your audio resolved? I can mute myself as well.
I did. I'm sorry, I'm not at home right now. And I was on my laptop speaker and microphone, which was not okay. And Eric, you're kind of breaking up for me. It might help if you
I'm sorry,
stop
everyone.
your webcam.
I'm gathering today on my mobile. Why don't you talk a little bit about Copilot? I'm going to see if I can reconnect. and if that resolves things.
Happens, tech issues happen. But yeah, Copilot. So Copilot is a CLI only tool. Like it's not a product by itself. It's not something that's doing. It's just a helpful CLI tool. It's meant to help you get started quickly with containers on AWS. It has as its main focus ECS on Fargate, and it also got day zero support for the new AWS App Runner service, which was awesome. So if you're not using CloudFormation, if you're not using Terraform, if you're not using Plume, if you're not using the CDK and want to get started quickly with containers, you have two big options. The first option is using the Docker Compose ECS integration, which most people don't know about. It's a thing. If you have a Docker Compose file, you can basically send that to AWS and it's gonna launch it into the cloud in AWS for you. It works relatively well. The other main option is using Copilot, which again is a very helpful CLI only tool that creates clusters for you, helps you with cluster definition, with task definitions. It's using CloudFormation, it sets up pipelines for you, and a bunch of other things. It's open source, it's on GitHub, it has a really active and open community, which I absolutely love. So they do respond to issues. If you're hitting any problems, they somebody's there to help you. And yeah, that's Copilot. I wouldn't personally use it into production. I might much rather go with Terraform, but I'm somebody that's comfortable with Terraform. If you want to get started quickly, it's one of the best tools. And if you're running something that doesn't have very intense requirements, you might as well use it in production. I hope that makes sense. That's basically Copilot. Again, I love it. It's an easy tool. It makes it easy to get started with containers to test stuff. So yeah, major thumbs up for it. And welcome back.
Yeah, so we'll see here, but is David Lozano on the call or?
I don't know, Daniela.
Yeah.
Nope.
All right. Any other questions here? Let's see what we got going on in the Office Hours channel.
Sorry, just with question with that Copilot piece, it seems to like auto spin up a whole bunch of infra for you, and including, I guess, a pipeline. Does it actually deploy a pipeline for you as well?
As far as I know, yes. Again, don't quote me on that because I haven't used the tool extensively, but it does set up if you want a code build and code deploy pipeline. I might be wrong.
So it's 100% AWS then.
Yes.
Like we wouldn't slot in like GitHub or GitLab at this point.
You cannot use that part and just use Copilot with an ECR repository that you push to using, I don't know, GitHub Actions, Jenkins, whatever else your heart desires. And you use the other parts of Copilot, like the actual setting up of infra and things.
Cool, thank you.
Hey, Andre, you were announcing there the DockerCon 2021. Any tracks you're specifically interested in? You might not. I guess that might not be on this very moment. Anyone else paying attention to the tracks going on at DockerCon? All right. The tfquery we can cover. Mazin is brought up tfquery. Let's see. Query. Looks like a Python script. to run SQL queries on your Terraform infrastructure. Interesting. So it's like a way to use the SQL.
Lost Eric. No.
I guess I need like a comedy routine as a to stall until he comes back.
His video is back.
Or maybe we need some commercials to play.
Thanks for stalling, Andy. Sorry, I don't know if this is going to
No.
work out. I'm going to have to come up with a better contingency plan for the future because tethering is also cutting out. Let's see, tfquery. Mazen or Mazin, is this a tool that you're working on?
Yep. So I have been building this tool for a while now. I had a problem where I have large Terraform workspaces and that I would like to analyze, and understanding the current environment was really hard. I wasn't really able to do it easily without writing custom scripts that would parse the Terraform state files that are in JSON, or like it was a real pain. So what I thought about is maybe if there was a nice way to run SQL queries on them, it would have saved so much time. And in fact, yes, like when I built this one and I started using it at work, it reduced so much time that I have been spending in just figure out how many IAM users do we have documented, or if there is a policy that is related to an IAM user, is it actually documented within Terraform? What type of things that within list me all of the S3 buckets on all of our accounts that has versioning disabled or stuff like that within Terraform without really having to use the AWS APIs.
Yes, I mean, first of all, from a coolness factor, it seems pretty cool, and I like the solution for what you're doing. I can't say that I have encountered the use cases that you are currently dealing with, but if I did, then I would want to use this.
That's awesome.
What
Would love to
were,
hear your feedback.
yeah, what were the other, I mean, so it's basically JSON. I guess what's nice about this is it's easier to use use an SQL like expression than using JQ. I'm guessing you started off using JQ in the beginning, and that just got like unwieldy, or?
Yep, and also if you are using JQ, for example, you have Terraform version 4 and Terraform version 3. Like Terraform version 3 is like for was the format for state files for Terraform version 0.11 or 0.12 and before that. This for version 3, and version 4 is anything above that. Both of them have the same data but different formats. So if you have, I don't know, 20 workspaces and some of them are using 0.11 minus, and some are using above that version, then you have to maintain 2 different queries. It was so much work. Yeah. So what I do here is I migrate all of the version 3 into version 4, like to the same data structure, so that I would be able to run queries directly.
Yeah, that's interesting. Has anyone worked on something similar or loaded their Terraform state like into a relational database for reporting purposes? Or visualization, like visualizing the size of infrastructure or your Terraform infrastructure from a SQL perspective. I'm thinking like Metabase, like one of these reporting tools that you can point at.
Another idea that I heard before is like, if you'd like to figure out how many users are documented, or let's say on Terraform, and they are not, and they are not, like how many users are not documented in Terraform and they are in our AWS account, how, and you would like to run this periodically, you can either write a script that would do this and parse the JSON file for you every time, and then it should work. Otherwise, you can build up 10 different checks using the same idea by just writing a SQL query.
Have you seen Drift CTL for this one? That specific use case?
Well, let me check it out.
Yeah. So Drift CTL will tell you what it sees in Amazon that's not in your Terraform state file.
That's crazy. I have to check it out right now.
Yeah, I want to get the author is in our Slack team. I want to get him on to office hours. Yeah, Andy, let's make a note of that if you can.
This is really cool. I actually built something that I was gonna release soon about the same problem, but it wasn't. I don't think that it was as cool as DriftCTL. So this is
I
really nice.
haven't had a chance to check it out. I know earlier versions were a bit buggy, but apparently a lot of those have been addressed. Someone in the Zoom chat is asking for the links. If we can share those in the Zoom chat too, I guess. Yeah. All right, let's see. Any other cool projects or announcements or questions here? I'm pulling up if I can find the chat window. There it is. That was tfquery. Vlad shared a link about more about the copilot and its implementation of pipelines, as well as a YouTube video going through that. All right, let's see. Any other questions?
I just
Terraform related.
I just sent one to the officehours channel. Yeah, so we are about to do a failover test of RDS, which, you know, I mean, I think they've tested it a lot, but we're checking some boxes. And one of the other things that we're looking at doing is restoring from a snapshot. So my understanding at this point is that by setting the snapshot identifier to a specific snapshot, just adding that to my AWS DB instance resource will replace the existing instance with that snapshot. I'm not sure if it replaces it. I'm not sure, because I guess I'm asking, anybody have experience with that? How does it work with Terraform and subsequent applies? I'm concerned about like some churn there. So I'm thinking of taking the value of snapshot identifier and making that a variable that we actually pass in. And, you know, if and when we need to restore, just change that. And I'm hoping that's the only change we really need to manage. Anybody have any experience with that stuff?
Well, one thing I just want to point out is that there are two kinds of ways you can restore a database. The snapshot identifier, I believe, is the best way supported by Terraform, but it's a bit heavy-handed in the sense that, Vlad, maybe you can correct me here if I'm wrong, or someone else. I don't recall. I don't think there's a way to do the point-in-time restores with Terraform. So you can also do point-in-time restores with RDS, and that might require using the
Using the what?
AWS client.
Right.
I never did point-in-time restores, so I cannot comment on that. I did do a bunch of RDS restore from Snapshot. Yeah, this was happening like I last did one a year ago or something like that, and it did recreate it. We were able to safely delete the snapshot after, but we did keep the line in Terraform, like snapshot identifier equals snapshot 2020 dash something something. That had no impact. Further changes, I remember we changed the disk size. They were no issue, everything worked fine. Just test it out just to be sure.
Cool, thank you.
But it was a pretty smooth experience.
So you just set snapshot identifier. It restored to the same instance with all the same meta information, name, endpoints, and all. And then
nope, it deleted the existing instance and created the new ones.
okay. Yeah, I mean, you know, everything's so tied in with Terraform. We've limited to a couple things like you know, just the URL and stuff like that. All right, that gives me something to go on and some hope that it won't be. That is hopeful.
Again, this may be outdated, so don't fully trust me.
I have also had the same experience with RDS. So the behavior is that your instance endpoint will stay the same. That's a key thing for your app. So that's a good thing. But it will take extra time to, you know, like 20 to 30 minutes to delete the instance and then another 20 to 30 minutes to spin up from Snapshot. So what we've observed in our kind of pipelines is that there's a potential to run out of timeout, so to speak, in some of our CI processes. So just be wary of that.
Yes, thank you.
That's a good point.
So what let's go ahead.
No, go ahead, Michael, please.
You notice something else about using a snapshot on RDS too. One time I tried it out. I had my own username and password I had declared on the RDS instance I wanted. When you restore from a snapshot, it actually brings in the username and password that was configured for that particular RDS instance. So you have to now try to use the other one instead of using the one that you have configured in your environment. So you have to use the RDS parameters, the whole username and password that was configured for that particular snapshot that you want to restore from. I mean, but I think there's a workaround.
Okay, does it keep all the existing automatic snapshots? Because when you delete an instance, it gets rid of those. But when you replace it, does it keep those? Anybody know that?
That's
all right,
a good question. Yeah, exactly. That's a good question. That is something to be wary of. Like when you delete an RDS instance in Terraform, all the snapshots that were not manual are gone. I'm guessing when you restore from a snapshot ID.
Yeah,
it's pretty dangerous.
That's worth saying like 3 or 4 times, honestly. I think I did. I think I did this at one point. Yeah. So really, to say it again, when you delete an RDS instance, it deletes all the associated automated snapshots, not the manual ones. So just be aware of that. Save yourself some pain.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Exactly. Yeah, career safety.
So one of the other things that I've been thinking about with that, if we have a couple more minutes, anybody's interested, is like I've been sort of lobbying for having table level dumps available for restores. That seems to me like it, you know, if you don't need it, depending on the granularity of the point in time you need, it might be nice to just be able to like snap off or just have them dump every however long and import those. That gets around a lot of the Terraform AWS lock-in type stuff.
I think that's good for like the black swan scenario. You know, they're different, like with security, you know, it comes all in layers. I would say with backups and recovery, it's kind of conceptually similar, is that there are different degrees of backing up. And having a golden backup you push off, which is literally like a p-SQL dump, might not be a bad idea. That said, you're not going to want to do that off the master. You're going to want to have a reporting replica that you can pull that off of, and subject to all the other concerns about privacy and security. You know, you have to make sure that backup is secure. At a certain point, though, like if you have, you know, multi-terabyte or petabyte databases, yeah, then it's not practical or feasible anymore, probably.
No, I did this and automated the whole thing to pull dumps from prod, dump it into a staging bucket in a different account. And then like developers and dev if need be could pull, could load those and just automated it all with Jenkins. And it was actually really sweet. And I didn't have to do anything. I could just be like, don't you remember that URL? Go like press buttons, go bug me.
That, yeah, I left nervously with that just because I've seen also this thing where, okay, you have that database and now like they run some process and they email 30,000 users their dev URL or something. So like giving that raw production dump to developers might not be a good idea if it's not been anonymized.
It's definitely against GDPR and a bunch of other data protection. I wanted to mention that if you want to get dedicated about it, you also have, well, first of all, you have AWS Backup, which supports RDS and exporting that to S3. And if you really want to get intense about it, you can play around with AWS Database Migration Service to keep a database in another account. You can play around with data pipelines. There is now, what is it? Glue Data Views, something. It's in preview beta something, but that's more for CQRS. So maybe not a fit, but it could be a good thing for keeping a backup database up and running that's also kept up to date and things like that. So there are a lot of options depending on what you want to do.
Great, thank you all very much.
So related to this, but not Terraform related, we did a point in time restore on a Postgres Aurora database, sort of in an outage last week. It actually really saved our ass, but that restore took almost an hour. Does anybody have any tips on in decreasing that time? Like, we were restoring it to a brand new instance as well. Like if we'd used a larger instance, would it be quicker? Or I don't know, it just seemed like kind of black magic. I was wondering if anyone had any comments or tips to doing that, but we did do a point in time restore based on a 5-minute interval and it came back like exactly when we expected. And we were able to sort of surgically recover all of our data that we needed from that restore.
I have not tried to optimize the point in time restore, but optimizing like a SQL dump restore, we had to deal with that recently. And for that, we just scaled up the instance, the number of cores, and ran PG dump with a crazy number of threads on a node deployed alongside the RDS instance in the same VPC. And that brought it down, but it was still like, I don't know. The funny thing is with all these things, we ran test after test after test, and we were expecting 45 minutes. And then the day of cutover, it took 2 hours and 45 minutes, and we didn't change a thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is managed by AWS. It's just on the day how they feel that day. That's how your whole restoration works, actually.
Yeah. There should be an AWS weather report somewhere. Partly cloudy, signs of showers. All right. Any other announcements or questions?
A quick question for you guys. Does anybody know the frequency of AWS ECS version release? So when will be the next version release for 1.21?
I believe they've come out and they have a commitment that they have that they will follow a new release within X weeks or months, but I forget what that is.
I think it's something like 3 months, and they do releases every 3 months. Typically, AWS does not share dates in advance because if something happens, customers get very, very cranky. I think they may have shared some general timelines at AWS Container Day at KubeCon in early May, but I'm not sure about that, and I'm not going to leak AWS NDA information. So give me a minute to see if I can find that.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Also, 1.20 is available now. Yeah, I don't see. I know they did talk about though speeding up that cadence because they were criticized for that before, that they were lagging too far behind. All right, well, what if, so, 2 weeks ago, we had a pretty popular topic on how to interview for DevOps in a fair way. Should one do practice exams or coding exercise or things like that? I think we got some pretty good answers across the board for that. I guess what I'd like to do is ask, what are some of your favorite open-ended Terraform interview questions? I can say one that I like a lot that's come up from overhearing some of our internal interviews on DevOps. That was by one of our engineers, Jeremy. And one of the questions he likes to ask is, what do you hate about Terraform, or what do you hate about XYZ? And I think that's a really interesting interview question, because anybody who's working with some tool, as much as they love it day in, day out, there must be things you dislike about it. And I think showing, or the kind of answer that a candidate gives based on that is indicative of how much they've worked with the tool or not. Any thoughts on that?
I think that's an excellent proxy for whatever experience, because it'll tell you that either it'll tell you about where the boundary of their experience is, like, how far did they get before they got into something that they thought was difficult, or it will tell you the frequency of an annoyance, right?
Yeah. And sometimes what they bring up isn't even a problem. Like, they just didn't know that there was a way to do it. and that's another answer.
Yeah, but these days, when you have as a DevOps engineer, I think some of the interviews I hardly get asked Terraform questions. They just give me Python to maybe write a code to test this, or just do this or do that. I hardly get asked Terraform questions, really.
What kind of position were you applying for, I guess, or was it like
a DevOps position? And I wish I get asked Terraform questions. I don't get asked Terraform questions. I'm asked like normal calculate maybe some data structure thingy, or so you're just given maybe hack around to solve something or this or that. It's really not specific to your role.
And in that role that you were applying for, they were expecting you to know Terraform?
Yeah, they
work with Terraform?
They always, they were expecting me to know Terraform, but they also wanted me to know Python and Golang too. On Go. Yeah.
Okay.
You make a lot of emphasis on Go and Python these days, more than Terraform.
Yeah. As if you're going to be modifying providers every day.
Yeah. I mean, the best interview I have been in was I think it's my present job, where I had I was given Terraform. I was given to set up something on Terraform, DigitalOcean, Ansible, Kubernetes. Like it was like everything at once. They were trying to deploy an application, and they're like, okay, so deploy this version, or take it back, deploy. It was amazing. It was actually nice, because I had to like play around everything. I know they were talking about
how long did the exercise take you?
50, because I was doing a lot of interaction, and then I have a coach on Twitter that trains me on interviews. So he told me I should be more of an interactor, because sometimes you don't interact during an interview. They think that you're not a good collaborator. And I noticed it when I got into the company, because I saw the commit I had done, and the guy who interviewed me said that I wasn't asking for questions when I got stopped. That I wasn't committed. So I think as part of the interview, I have to, even when I don't know what I'm doing, I have to still communicate. It gives you pointers.
Yeah.
when you're talking, when you're actually interacting with the person who is interviewing you. Yeah.
I think that is a really good sign, though. Like if somebody is asking questions as they get stuck and not just trying to, you know, make excuses for it or,
Yeah.
you know, talk around it. So yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. Any, does anybody have any interesting Terraform exercises that one could use as an interview question for DevOps and Terraform?
Yeah, I think I can share some interesting experiences with Terraform loops, and I think for each is quite a basic loop, and but most of the time it's a very effective. And last time I worked with one of my customers, and they use basically use they have to create maybe 10 or 20 resources, the same resources. So for the similar resources, they need to create 4 or 5 resources, and that means that the codes, if they the codes I got, it's around 20 or 200 or 300 lines, and then I squeeze them, use a loop, a Terraform loop. Finally, I got 30 or 40 lines. It's quite interesting experiences. Yeah.
So therefore, a good question could maybe be, you know, as part of the exercise, implementing something that would naturally have them implement n number of a resource and see how the candidate does it.
Oh, sorry, I didn't get your question.
Oh, okay. So I was thinking, like, you know, so if we turn that around, and how would that become an interview question or like a test for hiring a DevOps person? Would we turn that into then a question like, how would you provision, you know, 15 different instances in something like a stateful set using Terraform? And then the expected solution would show them have a for loop in there.
Yep. Yeah. This is I think this is a little bit slightly different, because we can, if we create the same resources, we can use count, right? And sometimes we have to use a for each, and it's similar. Yeah.
Similar, though count is very dangerous. Doesn't behave the same as for each, right? So with for each, it preserves the ordering of the instances, I believe, and with a count, it'll actually destroy and recreate if it changes. Has anybody seen any interesting GitHub repos for Terraform tests?
Somebody had shared, at some point, somebody had shared in one of our channels a repo that was fairly active on just an entire list of DevOps interview questions. And I think Terraform was one of these subfolders. I'm trying to find it. If anybody has a link handy.
Yeah, I do recall that. It was a big list of database of questions. I guess in this particular case, I'm really curious about the exercise to give to a candidate.
Yeah, so I think I have one that I recently had. It was with Cloudflare. So the company set up their Cloudflare on using the normal manual process, click and all, and then I was meant to Terraform that. And you know, when you're thinking about terraforming Cloudflare now, is I think Cloudflare now has CF terraforming and all, where you could just generate the resources. But now that will give you a very big file. You could have like 70 lines. So how do you modularize that without breaking what's?
It's almost it's almost like a trick question that way. Like that's really interesting. On one side is testing the candidate's ability to Google and find a solution. Okay, I can just use this Cloudflare command to generate the Terraform. Or two, they can do it by hand. And well, does the candidate ask a question? You know, which way to go? Do they clarify? Or that's an interesting one. Where the candidate can take the easy way out, and that says one thing about them, possibly. All right.
Yeah, I think the tricky part is when.
So which way did you go?
No, I asked the candidate. I mean, I was trying to implement it. I was trying to implement it in my work and all.
Yeah.
And then I could generate the whole thing, and I will come up with resources, a lot of resources, because we have a lot of sites. So I'll come up with a lot of resources that will span at least almost 200 lines of Terraform code, which is crazy. Nobody's even going to help me review that. So, so I had to I think I had to use Cloud Posse, pull try to work with the Cloudflare that currently exists, and then try to find a way to modularize it. I mean, it's still tricky because of the whole looping situation that Cloud Posse already has on their Terraform and all. I'm still messed up. But
I like that. No, I like that. I think that would be an interesting type of a question for Cloud Posse. Finding a question where we could see if the candidate, like for a Cloudflare, that'd be a really interesting one. Does the candidate go to just create the resources? Does the candidate try to use the Cloud Posse module? Or does the candidate find a third-party solution that exports the Cloudflare solution, the Cloudflare config to code? So there's 3 different paths to take. Did they ask a question on which path to take? Did they just go straight for cloud? Yeah.
I mean, I think some people just say default to Terraform has an import capability, but yes, Terraform has an import capability. It's when you bring that in, Terraform is going to complain about a couple of things. So you're going to have to remove all the things you don't need. And then you come in as resources. And then if I have over 20 records, I don't want to have to create those records, because as resources, I want to be able to loop through those records, through those, those records. So it's, I think
that's also a good sign. No, that's also really interesting. I like that point where the candidate, you give something where the brute force way would be incredibly tedious. And do they do something to avoid that tedious operation, like importing 20 resources by hand? That would really suck.
No, so CF Terraform actually would just import everything for you. You just need the zone ID, and it will just generate the whole Terraform script and the whole Terraform configuration for you. But now it's a lot, and you still want to have a base Terraform module. Let's say you want to actually add a new record tomorrow, and you don't want to use now call it by module. How do you solve that problem for tomorrow? And it's maybe in production, and you don't want to mess with your firewall, or you don't want to mess with your page. And then I think Terraform doesn't even support all the resources that is on Cloudflare at the moment. So sometimes you need to do some gymnastics to get.
I like that expression. Sometimes you have to do some gymnastics with Terraform. Yes. All right, let's see if any other questions here are just going through the chat. Tim Gurley, go on.
No, I was gonna say, can I just close a comment on that one? That was a question I asked last week, and the feedback was really great. But one thought I had after the call was what are you optimizing for too? So interviewing and hiring people is really a sensitive matter. And if one person doesn't work out, it's so painful that a lot of organizations I've worked at have really tried to overcorrect for the process. And sometimes you just can't. Things happen, you can't, nobody has a crystal ball. But one thing I did find interesting too, and I've talked to other people who have hired and they've kind of agreed with this, is there's this sense of a sixth sense when you're talking to somebody and they're like, this person checked every single box, but there was just something about them I wasn't sure about, but I ignored it. And every time I've ignored it, it's gone wrong. And I thought there was something interesting to that, but I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with the sentiment of it. I feel like if I had that happen, and it's frustrating because there's no way you can codify that. There's just something was incongruent. It's like the uncanny valley when a human looks at a rendering, we can see it's no matter how realistic it is, you can often tell that it's not a real human. Not anymore with AI and whatnot, I guess. Used to be the case. Now, how do we do that with hiring? All right. Any other interesting observations or tricks for interviewing DevOps candidates? Any good Kubernetes questions you like to ask that aren't too specialized?
You could just ask, tell me everything you know about role-based, authentication.
What's up with Clair nowadays?
What is up with Clair nowadays, Andy? You're on the spotlight.
I don't know. Is anyone else using it? ROS got acquired by Red Hat, and now I'm trying to include it, and it's like the documentation is crap. There's no community support for it anymore. There used to be a tool called Clair that let you do awesome things like doing a filter and a whitelist or blacklist, and now there's like none of that.
Because I thought it was, I mean, because I thought it was almost a trick question as well. No, because Amazon's apparently using Clair behind the scenes for ECR, so there's got to be continued investment in that front. I don't know if Amazon's upstreaming any of that work they're doing, and I haven't checked what the history, what the activity is on the project.
Is it only worth using if you're integrating it using its API and not just as a standalone tool, I guess?
Yeah, well, even in the implementation with ECR, it's really half-baked. You still have to come up with however you're going to escalate those and whitelist them and aggregate them and rescanning for deployed images. So yeah, it's not fun. I guess that's why there's so many third-party SaaS solutions trying to solve the same problem. All right, we only got a few more minutes left here. Any other questions or announcements? I'm gonna go check out the Slack channel here too. Let's see here.
Security tool that scans containers and doesn't open a pull request to bump the, I don't know, underlying image version or dependency is not worth it in my view. It adds a lot of friction to a process that should be frictionless. If every single time you have a security notice, you go like, oh fuck, no, not this again. Like that's not gonna create a good security posture. That's just terrible.
Yeah, no, that's true. And there's so many tools now out there that can do that kind of thing, like Renovate Bot, Dependabot, Snyk, Sonotype, etc.
Yeah, I work with the client had a tool that just gave you a PDF report after like you initiated a scan manually. It gave you a PDF report in typically 1 to 2 hours, but it could have been more depending on their system load. And that was just not going to be a successful engagement.
Yeah, I believe it. All right. Any other questions?
Did you talk about? I've been away for a couple of weeks. Did you talk about the resource, Kubernetes resource utilization or like accounting? That was a topic that you said you were interested in doing a deeper dive at some later date.
Drawing a blank right now. Is this how to better optimize utilization of Kubernetes clusters and the tools available to do that?
Yeah, and also like budget, like cost, like how to figure out your bill, like
like chargebacks of things running inside of Kubernetes, or
yeah, like you're overspending, exactly. I think that was something that came up a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't really have too current understanding on the best ways to optimize that. It was something we were looking into more a year and a half, 2 years ago. And at that time we'd settled on KubeCost, and KubeCost has done phenomenal and grown as a company and is kind of like leader in that. I think there is now another company also entered into the space. I forget what they're called though. Also Spot.io, which was acquired by NetApp. They also do optimization. I don't know if they do help you with like chargebacks, but this is chargebacks for Kubernetes. That's like, let's say you gave every team their own namespace and you wanted to split your overall spend on Kubernetes and charge it back to the business unit, that kind of thing. I don't know what there was one other company, Taloflow, I think would do it, but Taloflow has pivoted now. They're not doing that either. Yeah, no, not prepared for that one. Unless anyone else has something to add. Cool. Apologize for all the connectivity issues that result for future office hours. With that said, I think we'll probably end it early today. And let's see here, gonna zoom out here on the slides. And thank you all for participating today and covering for me while I was getting cut off. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, head over to youtube.com/c/cloudposse and subscribe. You can catch up on the past episodes. Also, we have lots of outtakes from specific segments that were really interesting under a playlist called Cloud Posse Explains. If you haven't yet joined our Slack team, I encourage you to join our Slack at slack.cloudposse.com or tune into the podcast, which is also just a syndication of the office hours at podcast.cloudposse.com. All right, talk to everyone same time, same place next week. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.